This conference will now be recorded.
It is 6 o'clock. That says 5:59, but
I think we could push it, don't you?
my cell phone says 6.
Yeah.
Crowd here a little bit.
A little bit. Feel free to leaf through this if you'd like
Are
to.
we ready with the recording? So we're ready anytime. I call to order the July 27th, 2022 Area Board of Zoning Appeals of Tippecanoe County meeting. First item on the agenda is the roll call.
Steve Clevenger,
Present.
Gary Schroeder, Michelle Dennis, Ed Butts, present. Tom Andrew,
Present.
Robert Novak,
Present.
Jen Decker, quorum present.
Thank you. New business.
Are we going to do the approval of minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That would
All
work.
right.
Yeah,
Approval of
that would
minutes.
work. Approval of the minutes, please.
I move to approve the minutes from the May 25th, 2022 BZA public hearing as submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And now, new business.
BZA 2086 Cumberland Partners Storage has asked for a continuance to the August 24th BZA agenda. All other cases on tonight's agenda are ready to be heard.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, may the record reflect that Michelle Dennis is here.
Thank you. At this time, I will go ahead and take the public hearing motion.
We're on.
Yep.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the unified zoning ordinance, the unified subdivision ordinance, the comprehensive plan, the bylaws of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and the recommendation on all applications to be heard this evening and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I will take the continuance, please.
I move to continue the BZA-2086 Cumberland Partners storage to the August 24th BZA agenda at petitioner's request.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. If you are here for BZA 2086 Cumberland Partners Storage, that's out on Cumberland Avenue on the west side, that will not be heard tonight. That will be heard at our August meeting on the fourth Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So again, that will not be heard this evening. I would like to briefly explain the procedures for tonight's meeting. Each case will be heard following a motion and a second from the board. We will ask the staff to report on its findings. Following the staff report, we'll ask the petitioner to present his or her case, after which anyone wishing to support the petitioner's request for a variance or special exception will be asked to come forward. After hearing from the petitioner and those speaking on his or her behalf, we will ask those speaking against the petition to present their arguments. The petitioner will then be allowed to rebut arguments raised by those in opposition to his or her petition. Following the rebuttal, the board may wish to ask questions of the petitioner, supporters, and opponents of the petition or of the staff. The staff will have the opportunity at this time to make any necessary clarifying comments. We will then vote by use of a prescribed ballot. 4 votes are necessary to make any decision. In the absence of 4 votes, either for or against, the petition is automatically continued to the next meeting. There are currently 5 of us here right now. Please observe the following guidelines for the sake of time and fairness to all. State your name and address for the record before you speak. And do we have a sign-in sheet for those other than the petitioner wishing to speak? When you come up, if you please sign and put your name and address on the sign-up sheet on the staff desk. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Do not repeat arguments that have been brought up by others. Remember that all visual aids used to support your arguments will remain the property of the board. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. Please step out of the room before using your cell phone. With that in mind, we'll hear the first case.
I move to hear and vote on BZA-2079, William S. and Jacqueline Bond. Petitioners are requesting an extension of a previously approved special exception BZA-1958 to add a 140-foot by 120-foot gravel overflow parking area and legitimize various outdoor areas with their agricultural rental hall in an A zone. The overflow parking area will extend north by 120 feet from the existing approved site area onto property petitioner has leased. Hours of operation will remain the same, with events occurring 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to midnight. The property is located at 7071 South 100 East, WIA 33 Northwest 22-4, UZO 3-2.
Do I have a second? Second. And we'll hear from staff, please. Mr. Hiddle.
Thank you. David Hiddle with the Area Plan Commission in the first case tonight. Petitioners are Jacqueline and William Bond, who are the owners of the property and proprietors of the business that is the subject of this case. Here you see the site outlined in red. It's in the south central part of the county, near the intersection of 700 South and 100 East. A little bit more up close. The petitioners own this lot and this lot. I believe that they live here, and then this is where they built their agricultural rental hall. They built that after approval in 2017 of a special exception petition 4-2 by this Board of Zoning Appeals. They are here today to request an expansion of that use. Once you get a special exception approved, like a variance, you're locked in to whatever the terms of that, the language of the petition are, including the site plan. And here they are asking for an expansion of what was the previously approved parking area, and they're also looking to basically acknowledge on their site plan 2 outdoor ceremony spaces. So this is the subject site. Again, the petitioners own this property. They do not own this property, but they are seeking to use a portion of it for their expanded parking area. So they are leasing this area from adjoining neighbors. Some photos. This is looking at the agricultural rental hall from the parking area, the existing parking area. That is looking north. From here is the original parking area, and then here is the rock they laid for the new parking area. So they've already laid that parking area. and then looking north onto their northern adjoiner. This is their site plan. So here is the structure. 7 is the original parking area. 8 is the expanded parking area. And then also 6 over here and 4 down here are both outdoor ceremony spaces where they have a little pavilion and then permanent benches, sort of like outdoor pews lined up. So they would have their actual wedding ceremonies in either of those 2 places. Those were not explicitly identified in 2017, and so we've asked them to do that with this petition, partly so that in the future, if there's any concern or questions about what was approved in 2022, if neighbors suggest that they've expanded doing something else, we can look at this and say, well, no, this is exactly what they had the approval for. They can do no more. So this kind of, again, sort of nails down what they're doing for future reference, and so that we have some ideas to the constraints of what's allowed there. There were also some in the narrative for the previous petition, they indicated operating hours 7 days a week from, I think it was from up until midnight. And they're not anticipating changing that. In fact, the only things that they're changing are the acknowledgement of these outdoor ceremony spaces and this northern parking area. Some more photos. These are photos of those outdoor ceremony spaces, relatively similar. This is looking from the parking lot to the southern outdoor ceremony area across a swale that's on the property. This is just a site plan showing the overflow parking, which is built up here. This is an older aerial photo. For special exceptions, you're also required to show lighting schemes, and you're required to indicate that your lighting is not going to create nuisance for adjoiners, and so they've included indication that they have solar lights along their driveway, which is accessed from 100 East, and then they have floodlights on the shelter or the structure itself, which is pretty far removed from any actual adjoiners. It's pretty isolated, speaking in general terms. The nearest neighbors, there's a cluster of neighbors that do live across the street over here. Otherwise, to the north and to the east, and then to a limited extent to the south, the area where they have the agricultural rental hall is pretty isolated. Findings for special exception are a little bit different than findings for variances, and they're on pages 2 and 3 of your packet. Staff does believe that all of the findings are met here, and so we are supportive of this request and would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, David. Petitioner or his or her representative.
Hello. I am Jacqueline Bond, and this is my husband, William Bond. We are the owners of the Stables Event Center located at 7071 South 100 East. Our original exception required that we have an 84 space parking lot for 330 guests, which means that 4 people per car. That does not happen. The exception also required that we had ample overflow parking either in grass or gravel. So when we originally came to area plan to get this approved, we had no idea what the state was going to require us to do around the building as far as the septic, how large that is, how the septic tanks, the swell for the drainage, the basin that they had us add for the drainage. So we lost all of that green space on the east, south, and west to be able to put parking that was feasible and to allow our guests to be able to enter the building without going down a big swell or you can't park on the septic. So we had leased the property from Mr. Purdy and his family for their farm, the 15 acres to the north of us. which connects kind of to where our main parking is. So we did put the stone down thinking that we were okay in that area because we were supposed to put stone or have grass. And we had been using that grass space for overflow parking, but we found it was muddy. I mean, especially this past spring. We did a father-daughter dance for Central Catholic, and those poor fathers and those little girls in their suits and their high heels were parking in the mud. So we put the stone down, not understanding that that was going to be an issue. So there's about 100 foot of it that falls on to the property we lease from the Purdy Farms. So we're just asking to approve that so that we can have extra space where they're not parking in the mud. We're not changing any lighting. The location that it is in is fine with the lighting that's on the building. It's secluded out there where you can't, the people pulling in and out, it's not going to make any difference. They're going to be there whether it's in grass or it's on that gravel. Does anybody have any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Again, please come forward. And you can go ahead and speak and then sign in afterwards. That way, speed up the meeting.
My name's LaDonna Shorter, and I live at 7112 South 100 East. And the neighbors expressed concern about an increase in traffic and safety before the original special exemption was granted, and there are still concerns for the neighbors. The 2016 traffic count on 100 East showed an average daily count of 2,277 vehicles. This was before the event center was built. In 2019, the traffic count showed an average daily count of 2,457 vehicles. During the 3-year period, the average daily count increased by 180 vehicles. The latest count was done in May of 2022, and that data is not available right now. But the residents have seen an increase in traffic since the 2019 count as we try to pull out of our driveways and walk across the road to our mailboxes. I am not saying all the traffic increase is due to the Stables Event Center, but that is contributed to increase if the Stables owners are having a problem with overflow parking. One day there were 3 buses near the event center entrance. One was in the entrance drive and the other 2 were on the east side of the road. Vehicles coming from the south were forced to pass them at a dangerous part of the road because of the hill, and the 700 South intersection is to the north of the Bond residence. I hope you understand our concerns regarding the traffic and safety, and that is why I'm asking you to vote no on the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition?
Opposition. My name is Anna Mathis, and I live at 6650 South 100 East. I disagree with the staff opinion regarding ballot item number 3. Granting this special extension will inhibit the general welfare of my neighborhood community by producing more distrust, friction, and animosity among neighbors. In the April 26, 2017 Board of Zoning Appeals minutes regarding BZA-1958, Jay Seeger, who was the staff attorney at the time, states, if granted, the special exception will be limited to the petition as presented and cannot be expanded or enhanced without another special exception hearing to expand. And William Bond states he knows he will have to file another special exception, for any future growth. The Bond's petition for an agricultural event center was passed by the BZA even though 11 neighbors spoke against it. The Stables Event Center officially opened in 2019. Violations started occurring in 2021. The owners failed to file when they built the first outdoor wedding area. That was a zoning violation, and that was a trust violation for neighbors. The owners failed to file when they built the second outdoor wedding area, another zoning violation and another trust violation. The 2017 staff states noise would come from either live music or DJs hired for receptions in the building. The owners have allowed outside music. Zoning violation 3 and another trust violation. The owners opened the barn doors in nice weather. That action doesn't contain the music. Not a zoning violation, but creates friction. The 2017 staff report states the 12-acre site provides adequate room for parking overflow and drainage. In the 2017 BZA minutes, board member Steve Clevenger asks if there are accommodations for overflow parking. William Bond replies that the venue is surrounded by a 12.5-acre pasture that can be used for overflow parking. I think the Bonds should have checked with the state of Indiana about the regulations before they even came here with their petition in 2017. The owners put in an overflow parking area on 15 acres of leased land, not on the 12.57 approved acres. They also do this without getting the required special exception. Violations 4 and 5. Trust has been destroyed. So finally, neighbors step forward and file complaints. A stables owner accuses a neighbor of trespassing and must have contacted the county sheriff's department because a deputy comes out to investigate. There is friction and animosity. The drawing of the septic, I don't know. The 2022 staff report states the owner's reasons for putting the overflow parking on the leased 50 acres. I don't know if these are valid reasons or just excuses. The reason being, the drawing of the septic field, number 8 up there, doesn't have any dimensions. So how do we know the number of acres it occupies? Or excuse me, it was number 3. Number 3. The topographical challenges were there when they bought the property and when they decided to put an event center on that 12.57 acres. They have been parking the overflow since we distrust them now. So I have some questions.
You have 30 seconds, ma'am.
Okay, I'll skip on. A yes vote for this special exception extension will only encourage the owners to do whatever they want. I am asking you to vote no, and I have 2 commitments I'd like for you to consider. Would you like a copy of them?
If you could pass them around, that'd be great. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Dave Ardapple, 7026 South, 100 East. I'm directly across from the residence. When they applied for this ground, they had to get a special easement to enter the back 12.5 acres they were going to get zoned. Now this easement now connects to their parking lot. With the added parking lot, it's going to go in leased ground on the neighbors. Is that what's going to happen when this lease ends? Is that easement still going to be valid to get to the neighbor's property? How long is this lease? What happens if is it a 1-year lease, a 2-year lease? When that lease expires, there's a gravel parking lot there that the property line straddles. There's no backset on either side. What's going to happen? These figures that they drew in there, this thing is so out of scale, it's ridiculous. They don't even show the southern boundaries Their driveway back there where it's parallel to the north and south boundaries is about halfway of their 12 and a half acres. They said they had more than enough room on 12 and a half acres for overflow parking. Those buildings, the parking lot and the entertainment center probably don't occupy 2 acres out of the 12. Give them an acre for the septic system, we're not up to half the ground. And they say there's topographical differences. We had no earthquake, no volcano, no meteor hit it. The ground's the same thing he had when he moved in. And he can't find an extra half acre for parking other than on the leased ground. What else is the other? He's leasing 15 acres. What's he going to use it for in the future? He didn't even tell us about the other 2 extensions or everything else he's done. And these all started in April. He used that parking lot on the grass for over a year. Never had any problems. He didn't even go down and file to get the amendment until after people complained. He said the parking lot on the south end would be disrupted to the neighbor down there. Well, when you move it and increase his parking lot there from 84 cars to another 50, there's 5 of us that live on 100. We're the same distance from that neighbor. He's telling me now the parking lot, which is going to be bigger, is disrupting all 5 of us that live closer. But with his Looney Tune cartoon drawing there, what are the boundaries on this leased property? I mean, there's no markers. There's no fence on the boundary from his north to on his side, on his west side and his north side of the property. There's no fence. People come in there. Hell, we can see all the way to the WBA radio towers down there. Where's the party end? I mean, it seems like there's not been enough information done on this, and this started back in April, and they still don't have good drawings. Whoever the architect or firm was that drew up these drawings, I hope he doesn't use them again. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Speaking in opposition? Hearing none, a rebuttal.
Okay, so first off, just adding this stone is not going to increase any more any more traffic than there already is that was approved for our original plan. What we're doing is making sure that our guests have a space to park that is safe, that is not in the grass, and is not in mud. And yes, we added the stone. As far as when the lease expires on that 15 acres, or if it does, at that time, we would have to scrape that stone off. That's what we would do. And we'd have to find another location to put that parking, which if we did put it in an area that might work, that doesn't have septic or swell or the retention basin, it would have to go down the lane in the south pasture that we own. We would have to add more lighting, and there would be more traffic to the neighbor that's directly south of us, because that connects to her property. We were trying to be fair and not as far away as possible. As far as traffic flow, we don't have events every single day. Do I wish I could? Yes, because I'm 7 days a week, but we don't have events every single day of the week. So as far as the traffic flow and increase, I don't think that is from us. And as far as traffic coming into the stables, one thing it has done on 100 is it's 35 miles an hour right in front of where our entrance is and where our home is. It's slowing the traffic down. Most people don't pay attention to that 35 mile, but people are turning in. It's slowing the traffic down when people are turning in. As far as the bus issue, we are aware of that issue. It was Lafayette Limo was delivering guests to an event for Purdue, and he had a breakdown, and they sent another bus to move people and then drive them on back. Their original thought was to let them off on 100 and let them walk the quarter of a mile back to the venue, and they didn't allow them to do that. As far as the music that they're bringing up, we were approved to have DJs or bands. We do have that inside the building. Every event that we have that has live music like that, we have deputies on site. So even the county is aware that you can't hear the music outside, even if you shut the doors. Yes, when people walk out the door, you can hear it for a second, the door shuts, it goes away. We can't hear it even at our
But no
house.
outdoor concerts.
No, we don't do outdoor music. We understand that if we were going to do that, we would have to file for a permit to have outdoor music. I don't know if that, I think that as far as the pergolas for the wedding sites, all they are is pergolas for them to be able to hang flowers or their decor on. And then there's benches for the guests to sit on for any outdoor wedding site ceremonies. Those last maybe 30 minutes outdoors, and they do not have amplified music going on during those. Any questions?
May have some in just a minute.
Okay.
All right.
I guess a couple of, quick comments. There was a lot of comments on the rest of the leased land. It's my understanding that there can be nothing else besides that parking based on the site plan. So they would have to come back before this board if they were to do anything else in that leased land based on, this site plan. I don't believe we require an exact drawing. We just require a sketch of what is going to go where. And so it's an approximate drawing. So just to kind of answer, a couple of the things that were brought up. So I guess you did state, the petitioners, you did state that there is no amplification. Is there a mic or anything during the wedding ceremonies, or is it?
They do sometimes.
Please come back up.
If they have a minister or officiant, they may wear a mic, but you can't even hear that even near the building or even in our parking lot. It's not loud. If you've been to a wedding, it's not, so.
And I'm assuming they probably have, you do have music, but it's not
They've had
amplified.
violinists, or they may have a
Right.
speaker with some light music when the bride walks down the aisle. But again, you can't hear it even if you're outside the building. When we're parking cars or helping cars being parked, we can't even hear that, even where we're standing up there, so.
And I guess a question for staff, since we do have outside venues now, do you have any concern with a possible, commitment of not requiring any type of outdoor amplified music? Just to be, or is that already essentially included?
I think that the Bonds Agricultural Rental Hall was one of our first ones. I
Okay.
think I'm correct in that. And since you got your first special exception, we've had a number, well, as you all know.
Yeah.
I think we do typically put a condition on a special exception for an ag rental hall that there would be no amplified music outdoors. I don't think we put that on this one because, like I said, it was our first one and we were kind of figuring it out as we went along.
And would you be agreeable to that as a condition?
Amplified music outside?
Yeah, correct.
We
Amplified
don't do
music.
amplified music
Right,
outside.
so I'm assuming that you would be agreeable if we put a condition on it.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
That, would anyone like to entertain a motion? Or are you happy with it?
I'll make a motion that they put in that there'll be no amplified music outdoors at this facility.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion from the board? I just think it's a measure to protect the neighbors so that if for some reason there is amplified music, they've got something to come back to.
It also brings it up to what all the others.
Correct, since we have, that is a common condition that we've had.
That it's a common thing for all facilities like this.
Petitioners,
if this is approved, you do realize then for the outdoor weddings, no amplified music would mean,
No DJ?
well, no, and I'm just looking for clarification. If the bride is going to come down the main aisle, no amplified music means no amplified music. So is it going to fit into your situation for an outdoor wedding?
But I mean, the type of music that they use, they may have a violinist, they may have a very small speaker that, that will be playing some music. I mean, you can't hear it. We don't put like a DJ out there like blasting music.
Well, and I
So
guess
they can't have music to get married?
I'm just looking, well.
I mean, that's
Or
kind
you
of,
have it outside. I guess I'm just looking for clarification because we did have quite a few neighbors come in. And in one instance, we're talking about no outside amplified music. And then we're sitting there saying, well, except for, and I just want, because there were neighbors coming in, so we're all on the same.
But my concern over that is everyone knows, when there's a wedding, there is some music being played for the bride, but it's not what I would consider like excessive or amplified. What I think of amplified is the DJ or a band outside, playing very loudly. So if we say that we can't, I mean, all of the other venues all have music, for their.
Can you please turn that off, sir?
Did you hear that?
Yes,
Turn that off.
Turn it off, sir. It's out of order.
That's why we have no trespassing
Thank you.
against him.
So there needs to be
Any
understanding that there would be
suggestions?
music for the wedding.
Not audible offside the property.
Okay. And there again, I just wanted.
But you're right, sir, you gotta have it in
Right.
there or
Yeah.
it doesn't serve the purpose.
Yes,
Right, got it.
I get that, but we don't want it, we don't make it, it's not loud during a ceremony at all. And what he might have been playing is a video that a videographer videoed, which, yeah, you can hear the music, or they put music over the video for the wedding couple.
So would we amend that to say no amplified music that would be audible within so many feet?
I'd say
or
outside the property line.
outside the property line? So if somebody heard it off-site driving down the road, that's too loud.
Got it.
If they hear it off the property, I think we put amendment on there to say no amplified music off.
Now, that's outside, right? Because there is a
Outside.
DJ
No,
inside
yeah,
or a
right.
band inside.
Well, but that still
But,
shouldn't be heard off-site.
Yeah,
either.
that you
So-
don't hear.
So we just want to say for your two outside venues that you have, it can't be
It can't be amplified where people can hear it from.
where any neighbor
Yeah.
could hear it or anyone driving by could hear it. It
Yep.
can't be that loud. If it is, then that's a violation.
One of the concerns, though, too, is that number 6 up there is very close to the property line. Most likely, you're going to hear it on the adjacent property, right over the property line.
That's woods, and
That's
that's
woods.
Purdy's also.
There's
All of that
nothing
to the east,
to
there's
east,
nothing.
To the north is all, there's
It's all
no
farm ground.
housing anywhere back there.
And if they were to sell that and put houses there, we just have to move that wedding site. Those are portable benches. And again, it's just a pergola that you can hang.
And it's freestanding.
Yeah.
It's not even
They
concrete
can hang
in the
something.
ground. It's sitting.
Okay. So do you have modified your motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second for the modified motion?
I'll second it.
So we have a condition, no audible music outside, or do you want to reword that, or how you?
Outside the property line.
Outside the property line.
Yeah,
And
outside the property
yeah, No
line.
amplified music
Outside the property line.
that's audible outside the property lines.
Right.
The gravel in 8 is
Or
already.
can we go ahead and finish the audible, or this, since we're,
Audible.
the audible? Since we have a commitment, a motion and a second, any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor of adding the commitment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries, so that is now a commitment on the special exception.
Okay.
Yes.
What about-
commitment or a condition?
That's a condition.
That's a condition,
We don't want to
yeah.
confuse it with the statutory
Yeah.
definition.
What about this second one that they recommended? Did you read that?
They're going to have to come, I believe that deals with any type of expansion
Right, on the lease,
on the leased property, and they would have to come
they
back
would have
before
to come
this
back for that
board.
anyway.
And
so
I don't
that
think
doesn't
we
need-
can,
I
I don't
just
think we can
wanted to
limit them in the
address it.
future.
You're right. Right.
He's right.
I mean, they can,
Hand it back.
they're free to come back in the future and.
If they were going to do that.
If they're going to do something else, and then the remonstrators can bring that up. That we were considering, I mean, that they had submitted that request. And we would consider it at that time. And you had a question, Tom?
Question on number 8.
Yes.
Is the gravel already there?
Yes.
It's currently there, so if we don't pass this exception, they have to remove the gravel? Is that?
I don't think they would have to remove the gravel, but they could not use it as parking. But I think it's my understanding that part of the lease agreement requires them to remove the gravel if they terminate the lease. Or the lease
And
does not get
gravel's
extended.
there. All right, that makes sense.
I mean, part of that is, actually, we can still park on some of that because it's still within our original.
It's close, but
exception,
it's.
But there's probably 100 feet of that would fall over into that other pasture.
And also just a note that there is no increase in number of people that can attend the event. It's just an increase in the amount of parking available because the parking was found to be insufficient by
84
the
parking
petitioner.
spots is not sufficient.
That was 4 persons per car, and we found that even at $5 a gallon, they're still coming to 2 per car. I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that anything to the south is that you said that there's a swale there and it's hard to get to.
Yep.
It's
a pretty good size retention pond that the drainage board, we ended up doing what we had to do. It was a kind of a hill, so we had to re-slope that all down, bring the parking lot down to the swell, back to the retention pond and back to the drainage ditch at the same rate. So there's a lot going on. The septic, nobody knew how big that had to be, but had to service 330 people, 8 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week.
So it's the size of a football field.
That's the size that it had to be, even though we typically are weekdays, there's not a whole lot going on, but that's the capacity. So, and that's what the state required us to do.
And it's also my understanding too, that if there are, violations, that neighbors can file zoning complaints and then it could come back to this board.
Mm-hmm.
So any other expansions, I'd recommend that you, now that you know, that you make sure that you file them and come back before this board.
Okay.
Got it. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we've got a ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got you got it. 5 ballots in hand, special exception granted 5-0.
The special exception has been granted, and we'll hear the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA-2080, James Allen and Tracy Bratton. Petitioners are requesting the following setback variance for a proposed 23-foot by 24-foot detached garage in the R1 zone. 1, to reduce the side setback from the minimum required 6 foot to 2 foot, UZO 2-1-9, and 2, to reduce the rear setback from the minimum required 10 foot to 2 foot, UZO 2-1-8. The site is currently a single-family residence and is located at 256 Washington Street in Dayton, Sheffield, 04 Southwest 22-3.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
Hello, good evening. Amanda Esposito, APC staff. The petitioners here are requesting a pair of variances. They live in Dayton in a very residential area, as you can see here. Pretty standard residential lot, surrounded by all residential except for the elementary school over here to the west. There's nothing unusual about this lot in particular. They currently have a single-family dwelling with a 2-car garage attached and a small garden shed in the backyard, which according to the petitioners, they plan to remove in order to construct the new proposed garage. Now, a note here about the site plan, it shows a 25-foot setback, but the requirement is for a 10-foot rear setback, which they have made clear in the petition here. So it's just on the site plan where it shows the 25 and not 10. So from the rear, they're asking for 2 feet instead of 10. And on the side, they're asking for 2 feet instead of 6. The proposed garage is going to house garden equipment and a not often used car. They do not plan to build a driveway back to this garage. Here's a few pictures of the house with the attached garage and the backyard here. I think that was it, yes. There may be a practical hardship in meeting the UZO requirements to place this garage, but staff could not find an unusual or unnecessary hardship, so we are recommending denial for both of these variances. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Petitioner, his or her representative.
For James and Tracy Bratton, 256 Washington Street. So I guess to explain it kind of so you guys see what's going on, if it moves forward to the 10 feet setback and over, it'll be too close to the house. Like I've got 2 old hot rods and they'll be stored in there in the winter. So it would be too hard to get them in through that spot. And that's the idea of having that size of garage, to put one of the cars in there during the winter. The other one will stay in the existing garage. As I work on them, we can flip flop them. So if it's set forward too far, it wouldn't be able to go in because of the positioning of the house on the lot. It's more long than it is wide. So that's why we're asking for the 2 feet instead of the 10 and 6 to position that. As you can see, the shed's pretty shot, so it's coming out, and it's kind of a shed garage is going in. So that's what we're looking for. Questions or anything on, it's pretty.
Anything else
No,
you want to add?
Like she said, we're not putting a driveway or anything in. It's just, it'll be random that they go back there. So I'm not putting a driveway in for that. Just garden stuff, tractor, that's about it.
May have some questions in a minute for you.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? I do have a question. Are there any easements in the back of the property, electrical, water, sewer, that
I
would,
don't believe so. They just put, well, Mulberry just put all new fiber optics in. So everything's located from the front on Washington Street and the side between the houses. I don't believe there's nothing back there. The water is all in the front driveway and the natural gas comes in through the front driveway. So it wouldn't be nothing in the back. And the neighbors on the adjacent street on the backside all come in from the front on theirs.
okay. I just want to make sure that there's no electrical poles or anything where
No,
they might need, where you might
No,
need
that was-
permission in order to,
no, there's nothing
Build.
back there. Everything comes in from the fronts of the streets on both streets back there. So nothing's.
and you do have if I remember the picture right, you do have fences around.
Yeah, there's a
the
privacy
property.
fence on the north, yeah, all the way around except for the front, yes.
And is 2 feet enough to maintain that property and the fence and the garage itself? And
Yeah,
you
there'll
can
be
mow or
yeah,
whatever?
2 feet, yeah, we'll just put decorative stone around it, so it's no mowing involved, yes. It'll just be 2 feet off the fence. Yeah,
Any other questions?
The plan we're looking at here, it says 25-foot setback, but it's actually 10.
Right, 10,
It's
but
supposed
it's
to be-
actually, that is the 25-foot setback there, correct?
Required 10,
But it's 10, so you actually have to come 15 feet. So
or 8 foot.
So probably about, it looks like about 16 feet of it would be, I'm just guessing, would be inside the setback.
The minimum requirement's 10 feet.
That is correct.
Correct.
Yes.
and asking for 2.
The 25-foot set foot back is for the primary use building, I believe.
Correct.
Where
Yeah, I think
since
that's for
it's
the home.
an
If the house
accessory
was being built
building.
there, yeah,
Yes,
that's
but
what
for
it-
accessory
If it was
buildings,
attached to the house, then it would have to be 25 feet.
Yeah, yes.
Do you happen to know what the distance between the existing house and the proposed garage would be if you're allowed to put it there?
From the existing house,
To the front of the proposed garage, do you know what the distance would be?
from our house to that, it's
Correct.
probably, what did we measure? We measured that, I don't remember what it is. I'm not exactly sure what the number would be from that spot to the front of the garage. I think it's 20 to 25 feet maybe is what we measured. I'm not sure though. That's why I said if you come in off the side to the garage, it would be, if it's too close to the house, you wouldn't have enough room to turn to put it in there.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering about is
Yeah,
what the
it's,
distance is, because if you'd move it 10, that's not done to scale, and I was just
I
wondering.
think if you moved it 10, we would only have like 10 feet from the house to the front of the garage is about what we measured at. If it's set on the 10-foot setback, the front of the garage would be that close to the house.
I'm just, because that looks like at least 25 feet between the building and
Yeah.
the garage. But if you moved it 8 feet
More. It's just
more,
cutting down on the space between
it's
them.
cutting down, it's cutting down on the
Yeah.
space.
Another reason I went with that is our shed's only 2 feet from the line now. So with it back that far there's nothing behind it, of course, made it nice. But the main reason is the garage is 24 feet wide length, so it would have to set that far back also.
Any other questions?
How close, I do.
Oh, go ahead.
On the back side, how close are you to the buildings behind, any buildings behind you, like the house behind you?
No, the house behind us sits towards the road.
I think we had pictures that we could.
Yeah. What you're seeing, that roof there is a garage that's back there behind their house. Behind the shed on the right is a garage of the neighbors
Okay.
behind us.
in that
See it?
corner. Yeah.
And it doesn't actually set behind my lot. It sits behind the lot that's on the north side of us.
And, okay, and your distance from there is pretty good too. We don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. I'm looking at the fire side of it.
Yeah.
Fire, how it.
Right. So we would still have the 2 feet between us, and they're I think 2 to 3 feet off their property line back there. So,
5 to 6 feet is what they require. So
Yeah.
that's close. And we,
The corners are kind of close.
yeah, but I think it, yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we've got a ballot. There are actually 2 ballots.
All right, as to variance number 1, 5 ballots in hand, and it passes 5-0. As to variance number 2, 5 ballots in hand, and it passes 5-0.
Both variances are granted. Thank you, and we'll hear the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2081 Patrick R. and Melinda C. O'Neill, trustees of the Patrick R. and O'Neill and Melinda C. O'Neill Revocable Living Trust. Petitioners are requesting the following variances for a proposed apartment building in an R4W zone. 1, to reduce the lot area from the minimum required 27,750 square feet to 10,763 square feet, UZO 2-11.5. 2, to increase the maximum coverage by all buildings from 40% to 69.5%, UZO 2-11-7.
Second.
3, there's a couple more here. 3, to reduce the minimum vegetation coverage from the required 30% to 17.1%, UZO 2-11-7, which was amended by the petitioner on 6/27/22. 4, to reduce the front setback from the minimum required 25 feet to 9 foot 1 inch, UZO 2-11-8. 5, to reduce the rear setback from the minimum required 25 feet to 3 feet, UZO 2-11-9. 6, to increase the maximum building height from 14 feet as measured from the ground to the finished floor of the uppermost level to 45 feet, UZO 2-11-11. 7, to reduce the minimum parking standard from the required 91 parking spaces to 20 spaces, UZO 2-10-12. And 8, to eliminate the requirement of a 5-foot no parking setback along the western property line, UZO 4-4-6, on property located at 418 Harrison Street, West Lafayette, Wabash, 19 Southwest, 23-4.
Now I'll second.
Thank you. And we'll hear from staff, please. David?
Thank you. Again, David Hiddle with the Area Plan Commission. This is a request for a set of variances involving property at 418 Harrison Street. This is south of downtown West Lafayette and west of River Road. So a closer look at the site. It's currently improved with 3 structures. Older structures, a house that's been converted to an apartment building, a built apartment building. And then in the back of the property at the north of this lot here is, I think it was originally in a garage that's been converted to apartments. The petitioner's plan is to remove all of the existing buildings and then to build on the property a new building, 1 building, 5 stories with 32 dwelling units, almost its footprint matching the perimeter of the lot. So the building would take up pretty much all of the lot. This would be the ground floor of that building, and you can see it again fills most all of the lot. The ground floor would be parking, and then I think an elevator shaft as well as stairs that would lead up to floors 2 through 5, which would contain the residential units, a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units intended for student housing. This is the elevation of the proposed structure. This is what's on site now, looking north from Harrison Street. This is an older house built in the 20s or 30s, converted to apartments. This was the apartment building that was built sometime soon thereafter. And then in the back of the property is this former garage, which is also a couple of apartment buildings. We kind of consolidated the requests into the variance requests that we support and then the variance requests we don't, and they really fall into 2 different camps. First, 6, 7, and 8 we support. I think essentially, in quickest terms, our ordinance is outdated with regards to how it treats height in these multifamily zoning settings, and it would allow a building no taller than 2.5 to 3 stories here, but these taller buildings are pretty predominant in the area and should be allowed, I think, in this setting for R4W. By the way, this site was rezoned from R3W to R4W And it was finally approved just last month, I believe, by the West Lafayette City Council. So it was recently rezoned to R4W. With regards to variants 7 and 8, both having to do with parking, we're currently undergoing a study of our parking requirements, and our intent is to dramatically change those. I think that they require quite a bit more parking than is necessary, especially for multifamily. And this area is unique in that because it is student housing, there's much less desire or need for ownership of cars here. So in our opinion, the proposed number of parking spaces would be suitable for this area. Where we have concerns, though, is with 1 through 5, and they're all pretty similar, and they're all relatively significant requests. It's not just a 2-foot request off of a 20-foot side setback. It's a 50 to 75% deviation from the established norms. And really, it represents an over-intensification of a relatively small site. We're looking at a 1/4 acre site that's going to have 32 dwelling units in it. One of the reasons that we have setback requirements and maximum coverage and minimum vegetative coverage is to provide for some open space for one thing, but so that a site isn't completely overutilized and overdeveloped. If every site is developed in that fashion, then there's really no rhyme or reason or rhythm to the streetscape after that. In this instance, it's kind of a glaring situation too. This is not an area where we have any control over design features. It's not a planned unit development. There's no overlay district here. But this is the structure that would be dominating, and it's institutional looking, to say the least, with the very skimpy windows, and it's a kind of a domineering, brutalist approach to architecture in the area that we don't really have on site yet. So the fact that the proposed development would dramatically overdevelop the site in terms of zoning ordinance requirements and would do so in sort of an aesthetically jarring fashion, we don't think is supportable. I think that's all I have. Are there any questions? Okay.
Good evening, Kevin Riley, attorney with Riley, Teeter and Schreier, representing the petitioners. I think it's important that you all have some history about this petition. This isn't something we just filed willy-nilly. Discussions have been going on with the city and staff for 4 or 5 months now. Multiple calls, emails, meetings, discussions. In fact, we initially approached the city about filing a planned development, or requesting a planned development pre-submission meeting. And there were some discussions, like I said, with area plan and the city, and it was a collaborative decision to decide to go forward with a rezone to R4W and variances instead of a PD. So I think it's a bit unfair when everybody knew what was going on and that was the agreed upon direction to now say, well, we don't like this because we don't have any control over the design. We were told, as far as we understood, this was the direction people wanted us to go. That's what we did. So that's why this isn't a PD. That's why it's a rezone with variances. And area plan and the city were fully aware of the variances that we were going to request when it was decided that we were going to file an R4W rezone and file the variances. The rationale to explain the reason we're going forward with this approach is that it was agreed that the scope of the project, which is about $5 million, single lot, no commercial, didn't warrant incurring tens of thousands of dollars in surveyor and engineering fees typically associated with a PD and a replat. That's why we went this direction. So we filed, based on these discussions, we filed the rezone to R4W, which is appropriate for higher density multifamily projects. Staff and Area Plan Commission both recommended approval of the rezone, and the city approved the rezone to R4W last month. And I want to quote from you a portion of the staff's report on the rezone that we believe accurately summarizes why these requests are appropriate. The R4W zone removes the density requirement found in R3W zone. The neighborhood south of Wood Street has long been a student-oriented multifamily residential area, with newer projects making use of both plan development zoning and R4W zoning to increase density. The redevelopment effort proposed by the petitioner is following a similar trajectory and is acceptable given its adjacencies and proximity to campus. Now, I realize this was the rezoning staff report, but our redevelopment effort, and we were very clear about this, our redevelopment effort included variances. So in our opinion, that was everybody understood where we were headed with this, and as far as we understood, nobody had any objections to that. The description of the project in terms of the number of units and our plans to tear down the buildings, that's correct. I also want to note that the proposal will move all of the parking underneath the building, so there will be no surface parking, which will help eliminate some of the concrete that's out there, the parking areas. There's a lot of concrete, a lot of stone out that direction. It will also eliminate the existing driveway off of Harrison Street. It's our understanding the city of West Lafayette supports these variances, but Erin Easter's here tonight. I'm going to let her speak for the city. I don't want to do that for her. I did want to address the variances as quickly as I can. The lot area, as I mentioned, staff knew the size of the lot and the building that we planned to build when the rezone was filed, and we got positive recommendation for that rezone. We have reduced the size of the building as much as we can to still have sufficient parking underneath the building. So all of the parking that is currently outside on the surface, this building basically is just taking up that space. The reduced lot area is not common to other properties in an R4W zone because most of the redevelopment that is occurring in West Lafayette near campus is done through plan development process, where all development standards are negotiated. That language is in the Marsteller staff report from, I think it was 2020. And also parking, as I mentioned, is going to be underneath the building, which is a bit unusual in this area. Strict application will result in an unnecessary or unusual hardship. The property is zoned for high density. The area is high density. The lot is small. But we did this as a collaborative effort, or at least with some discussions, and so now it's not necessary to, or it is unnecessary to apply a strict application, and then we don't think that the hardship is self-imposed, and we are requesting the minimum relief. Variances 2 and 3, which are maximum lot coverage and vegetative coverage. I want to note that 3 recent developments approved in West Lafayette had greater lot coverage and less vegetative coverage. 2014 Pierce Street, Monterey is 79% lot coverage, 11% vegetative coverage. 117 East Columbia Street PD, 76% lot coverage, 13% vegetative coverage. 309 Grant Street, which is Grant Street Station, 79.7% lot coverage, 12.2% vegetative coverage. Our development is 69.5% lot coverage, 17.1% vegetative coverage. So we're covering less percentage of the lot, and we're providing more vegetation than all 3 of those. In addition, we're adding green space on our site. We're going to go from 11% to 17.1% green space. So we're actually increasing what's already there. These variances, like all the others, are not going to have any impact on the adjacent properties. And again, we think the strict application of the ordinances is unnecessary and unusual, especially in regards to the fact, or with respect to the fact that there are other developments recently approved that have less compliance, I guess, or need deviate further from the ordinance than what ours do. The minimum front setback request, there are other developments in the area that have front setbacks of 9 feet 9 inches, which is Pierce Street Plan Development, and 5 feet, which is Grant Street Station. I understand that these are planned developments, but there's still developments that are in this area that have less or similar setbacks than what we are asking for. And again, I think this request meets all the standards of the ordinance to be granted. With respect to variance 5, which is the minimum rear setback, I want to note that PRF owns the property adjacent to this rear property line. There have been discussions between our client and PRF. PRF indicated that they preferred a 3-foot setback as opposed to the 0-foot setback that we originally requested. And so we revised our petition to include a request for a 3-foot setback. PRF asked for fire-resistant materials to be incorporated on the north side of the building, which is adjacent to their property line. Petitioner has agreed to do that. We've satisfied all of PRF's requests, and they've indicated to us that they have no objection to the petition. I also want to note that PRF's property to the north, according to the Purdue Master Plan, shows nothing being developed on that site. It shows it continuing to be used as a parking lot. Again, I think this variance request meets all the standards of the ordinance. Variances 6, 7, and 8, as Mr. Hiddle mentioned, the staff is in favor of those variances. Those are height, parking, and no parking setback. We agree. We appreciate the staff's support of those 3 variances. All the variances, in our opinion, meet the standards of the ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Apologize for the speed, but I wanted to get through all those. Thank you.
Good evening, Erin Easter, 222 North Chauncey Avenue, West Lafayette, Indiana. It is true that we have requested that this go through the variance path other than the PD path for multiple reasons. First, I want to thank Mr. Hiddle for his summary of this project. And I do trust that the developer team will take his comments on design to heart. We certainly would like to be able to move forward with plans where we do have the opportunity to have few variances in instances where we're looking at a single property, where we're not crossing boundaries and where we don't have mixed use, which is oftentimes what we run into when we're looking at rezone issues, right? We have multiple uses and no zone that can adequately contain them. For this site, sorry, I'm having some feedback and I assume you are as well. For this site, we did want to go the same way with this that we did with another recently, which was Campus Christian House right on State Street. Instead of going through the PD route, we requested variances for that project for 2 reasons. We knew we could continue to work with this designer and the developer to make sure that it was reasonable for the area. And 2, the PD process, as you well know, it takes a lot of time and effort. And in some instances, a few modifications are sufficient to have a successful project as opposed to multiple months of negotiation when we're also looking at a project that doesn't cross property lines. We're not trying to figure out how to negotiate many types of uses within a specific boundary of that property and that project. So structured parking, I do want to touch on a couple of things. Though this is not in the studied area for the downtown master plan we have in West Lafayette, there are a few things that we would like to see continue as we travel further south, really to this roadway, which is kind of where this neighborhood ends. Structured parking is always something that we will like to see. We don't have a lot of land in West Lafayette City proper, and we don't have a lot near the campus. So we want to use that wisely, and when we can have structured parking, we prefer to do so. In addition, there are a lot of other components of this building that are consistent with the spirit of what that downtown master plan is, and making sure that we have appropriate land use for all of the competing needs in our West Lafayette area. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Question?
Regarding parking, with the exception of the on-street parking, and I'm not very familiar exactly with that, where is the next closest location that you could park a car without a permit? If you have visitors, if you have anything else, where would you be parking?
Tom, do you know the answer to that?
Structured parking?
No, on-street parking or just non-permitted parking?
Non-permitted, if you have move-in date, parents visiting, or friends, where would you be parking if you can't get a street spot?
I believe that the street, I cannot remember the name of it, where the new development is, is it the Rise? That street has some on-street parking, I know. I don't know how close that is to where we're talking about. There is, there's on-street parking in the area. You'd have to walk a little bit, but I know there's parking along that street that leads up to the new high-rise there on the corner.
You do have the parking garage.
And I don't know if that's permit or not. Yeah.
I'm assuming that the city does support variances.
Steve, could you turn your microphone off, please?
Oh, sorry, thank you. I didn't realize I had it off.
Yes, we do. Thank you. And on the parking, we do have quite a few places throughout West Lafayette that don't have parking to accommodate move-in day, right? We have a coordinated effort that goes through our teams with Purdue PD, our police departments, and the owners of any of these structures where we're moving a large number of students at any given time. Logistically, it is difficult. Outside of those times, we really don't have enough capacity outside of student residence where we need to have extra parking. And we certainly coordinate with the university and PRF on these adjacent properties for those move-ins.
I was just wondering, with the size of the project and the parking underneath, which I would assume is going to be for occupants.
That is my understanding.
If you have somebody coming over, if you have other people, where are they going to park? Because also with the other residences on that block, I would assume that on-street parking is going to get very competitive.
It can, yes. Yeah. I think the most adjacent street to the east is Grant, and I believe there's parking on there, Harrison. I don't believe this area of town is overparked at the moment. I think there's still plenty of street parking spaces nearby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have 8 ballots. It's going to take us a little while to fill all these out. Thank you. For those of you waiting, we do have a whole series of questions where we have to answer and give reasons. So that's why with 8 variances, it takes us a while.
All right. All of the 8 variances have been fully voted with 5 ballots for each of the 8 variances in hand. Variance 1, variance 2, variance 3, variance 4, variance 5 are all granted 5-0. Variance 6 is granted 4-1 in favor. Variance 7 is granted 4-1 in favor. And variance 8 is granted 5-0 in favor. Was that clear enough? Thank you. All right. Okay.
Thank you. All 8 variances have been granted, and we'll hear the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2082 Riverside Construction LLC. Petitioner is requesting a variance to reduce the rear setback to 21.5 feet from the minimum required 25 feet to replace an existing 20-foot by 12-foot deck with a proposed 20-foot by 12-foot covered screened-in porch and an R1B zone. The existing single-family home is located at 15 Flower Mound Drive in Winding Creek subdivision, Tippecanoe 29 Southwest 24-4, UZO 2-3-8.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and Kathy, please.
Kathy Lind, Area Plan Commission. Petitioner's property is located in Winding Creek subdivision. It's zoned R1B. Coyote Crossing Golf Course is over here to the east. We're just north of 500 North. The property is located on the south side of Flower Mound Drive, and just south of this lot is a, I think, 3-acre, 4-acre single-family dwelling here. Here's a look at the aerial photograph. And a closer look. So the house currently has this deck on the back of the house. The deck is currently 21.5 feet from the rear property line, which is legal because there's no roof on the deck. So a deck without a roof can be as close as, well, 4 feet into that 25-foot setback. But petitioners would like to tear down that deck and replace it with like maybe a 3-season room. Anyway, it's a screened-in porch with a roof, and that is where the 25-foot setback kicks in. Here's a look at the site plan. Now this is kind of upside down, so south is facing at the top. But it shows the 21.6 or 21-foot 6-inch setback that's existing, and it's going to stay that way. They're not planning on increasing that setback at all. And here's a look at the deck that they are hoping to replace. And here's a couple of other pictures. So as far as the ballot items, clearly this is not going to be injurious to the public health. It's not going to adversely affect any neighbors. Staff doesn't have any issues with those findings. However, staff could not find a hardship for this request. It's probably a practical difficulty, but it doesn't rise to the test of a hardship, and staff is recommending denial.
Thank you. And petitioner, his or her representative.
Hello, Aaron Johnson, Riverside Construction, speaking on behalf of Brian and Rebecca Dick for this addition. We have tried to maintain that full 25-foot setback. It would reduce the depth of the screened-in porch. It's a screened-in deck. It's not, it doesn't have a concrete structure underneath. It would reduce the depth to 8 feet, and after the outside width, the usable space is 7 feet at the most. We have that direct vent fireplace that bumps into the space as well, further reducing the space. So we did try some other variations with that 8-foot depth, and also did estimates on it, and the cost really outweighed the value gained at that point. There's not room enough to put a table with chairs around like they currently have now. A large factor is also the hardscape, the concrete path that surrounds the entire house and surrounds this deck currently, which would have to be removed, reworked for that 8-foot depth to keep the 25-foot setback. I believe that's all.
Thank you. We may have some questions for you in a minute. Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition?
Hi, I'm Brian Dick. I live at 15 Florimond Drive, West Lafayette. The reason we wanted the deck changed was to get the roof is because the southern exposure of the light is so bright that it's really difficult most times of the year to be outside. My sister-in-law lives with us and she's got COPD and has to walk around with a walker all the time. And if we tried to make it smaller, it would reduce, as he said, the usability of the deck, and she wouldn't be able to get around with her walker going outside. And she really appreciates being able to look outside and be outside. And that's the main reason, the hardship that it would be for us since we're not changing the size of the deck at all. And the property behind us is basically used for right now alpacas and goats, and it wouldn't influence. The house is pretty far away. There is a shed structure that's just off to the side of the property next to us. If you back up, I think you can see that. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And could you go ahead and sign, please? Thanks. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition to the petition? Questions from the board? Hearing none, we've got a ballot.
The setback variance passes 5-0.
Variance has been granted and will Take the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2083 Love's Travel Stop, Betty Tordenson. Petitioner is requesting a variance to increase the total signage of the sign lot from the allowed 300 square feet to 368.04 square feet for a new Love's Travel Stop near Schuyler Avenue, I-65 interchange. The property is zoned I-3 industrial and is specifically located at 2400 East, 200 North, and Fairfield 10 Southeast 23-4 UZO 4-8-5.
Motion and a second. We'll hear from staff, please. Amanda?
Thank you. So BZA 2083, it is for a Love's Travel Stop that is going at the intersection of Schuyler and East 200 North. It is zoned appropriately, I-3. As you can see, the surrounding zoning is mostly floodplain, actually. It's visually set apart from a lot of the properties around it. Further out is a mix of residential and business. The nearby Wildcat Creek is the reason for that floodplain zoning. The petitioner is requesting additional square footage for their total sign allotment. Whenever we look at sign packages such as this, we have a worksheet that we calculate how much square feet they are allowed for the entire site. And different factors go into that, such as the zoning, the streets that they're on, and so on, setbacks. And they're allowed 300 square feet. The sign package that they are proposing is for 368.04. And that encompasses a variety of different types of signs. You have the list in the staff report. The letters that are handwritten here correspond with the letters on your staff report. So we have a freestanding sign here is A. The gas canopies are H. And then we have a couple of fascia signs for the Love's Travel Stop and the Hardee's on one end. And then over here on the other end of the site, we have a truck tire center. The following slides here show some images of what those signs will look like. Standard signs for any Love's that you might have seen on the interstate, as well as the Hardee's, and then the various signs for the truck tire center. As you can see, the site is heavily wooded from the Wildcat Creek. I mentioned that it is visually set apart from other properties around it. It's not competing for customers, in other words, so their signage of 300 square feet should be sufficient. It doesn't need to draw in customers from further away because the customer is already there. So in our findings, we deemed that the hardship is not there, that 300 square feet should be sufficient for this site. So we are recommending denial, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Good evening. I'm Chad Bruner with Love's Travel Stops. So first off, I want to kind of give a little compare and contrast of what we're looking at here versus what maybe you've seen north and south of here on I-65. Those stores north and south of here have about 1,500 square feet of signage. So there are two things that kind of drive that. One is the high-rise sign, which we don't have here. There's a hill to our east, I guess, that precludes any visual for a high-rise. So the other component that drives our sign square footage is the uses. We are one singular building and one singular name, Love's, right? But we have three real businesses within that envelope. So we've got the C-store, which is the Love's. We've got a Hardee's, which is its own kind of self-contained business there. And then we have a tire shop back in the back. So there's really looking at three uses within one little building envelope there. So taking out the high-rise use, what we would put on a normal Love's in this situation is about 760 square feet of signage. That's what I would ask for. I didn't want to walk in here and ask for twice the amount of signage you guys are going to ask for. So
What we did is we went through the sign package and we cut and we cut and we cut. We tried to get to 300 square feet, but to keep the signage requirements of those 3 separate businesses in mind, that just at the minimum that we need, we're going to ask for the additional 68.04 square feet. One of the comments from staff was that it would be simple to amend our sign permit package to get under the 300 square feet. One of the recommendations was removing one of the 2 Hardy signs. We could do that. We're still 2/3 of the way away from being to 300, right? So that's like another 23 square feet. So we've done the easy cutting, we've done the medium cutting, we've done the hard cutting. We've cut down to the bone, really, for one of our facilities. And really, as you look at the signage as a whole, 300 square feet is dispersed. It's not really concentrated in any one spot on the site. So you can see the freestanding sign way out on the frontage. You've got a 10,000 square foot building there with 3 signs. You've got another 10,000 square feet building 1,000 feet back that has a couple of signs on that. And then you've got canopies where we took signage off of those canopies, again, to try to get it to where it's only red where you would have vehicles. Normally we would have signage on all sides of those canopies. So taking that into account, I appreciate the board considering how much we have cut out of what we normally do. One thing I will kind of put out there is that, can you go to the, or is there a way to go to like the second to last slide? Yeah, I look on the pictures. Right to the next one. So you can see that billboard right there that's currently red on Schuyler. I don't know exactly how big that billboard is, but let's call it a couple hundred square feet. We're planning on taking that billboard down as of now with this sign package. So you're looking at essentially a net reduction above and beyond what you would normally have if we were to leave the billboard up for that site. So again, appreciate your consideration, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the board? I guess I've got a couple of questions for you. Sure. What is the use of the brand names of the tires? I mean, it seems that, the signs. So I'm assuming though, just for clarification, staff, that those are included in the sign packaging since they're brand names. That it seems that, well, maybe there's another tire comes up, well, you're gonna need another sign.
So normally those buildings would have, I'm trying to look here real fast. So normally those buildings would have 8 branded signs on those buildings. And there's certain contractual obligations we have with the tire companies whenever we sell their brands. So the 3 that we have to have are the 3 that we left on there, Michelin, Bridgestone, and Goodyear. We took the other ones off because they're kind of optional for us. So we've cut those down to the ones where if we sell the tires, we have to advertise the tires. So that's why those 3 were left onto the building.
Okay.
We would not add additional on there, obviously, because
right. I mean, you'd have to come back before us in order.
Correct. Yeah, and that's not something we've really ever done on a variance request.
Right. Because I guess my comment, I mean, it makes sense that if you have contractual obligations, but it seems like you're not really advertising. I mean, that's not you've got a tire center, the Love's Tire Center, right, which I can see the sign for, but the actual brand name signs, if you weren't contracted to put those on the building.
Yeah, we could just take those off.
Then you would take those off.
I do want to point out that those signs there, and that's obviously actually other than our main building, that's 70 square feet that's back there. It's not really viewable from the street. It is only really to be read from interior to the site. So there's your extra 68 square feet essentially, right? So 70 square feet, it's really only read from the interior of the building, or from the parking lot.
Okay. And, I understand, the Hardy signs too. I mean, that all makes sense. What about the Charbroil Burger sign? I mean, it's kind of obvious that Hardee's has.
It's part of their branding. Whenever we put these, we're not completely in control of some of these sign requirements. So just like somebody who is a franchisee of Hardee's, which we are, we have to meet certain requirements with them. So their logos have to, we have to meet the requirements of them, and this is the basic requirement we have to meet with Hardee's. So they have to be on the road sign, and then they have to have the Hardee's star with the Charbroil's Burgers sign on it. So again, just kind of meeting their minimum sign requirements.
And you said you do have control now of the billboard, so that is something that
we do have control of the billboard.
You said you do plan on
Yeah,
taking
and
down.
if the board would like to make it a condition that we take that billboard down, I have no problem with that. We'll do that. So that takes that signage off of Skylar.
Does staff any comments on the billboard?
I just have an email from the petitioner saying that the billboard was going to be removed. That's all I have the information on.
I mean,
So it was going to happen.
Is staff comfortable the way it is, or would you prefer a condition?
Make it a condition, that's fine.
Sure.
Well, do, okay. Yeah. Turn on your mic.
Condition that the billboard on site now will be removed when the project is complete.
If the variance is approved.
Yeah, I mean, it'll only take effect if the variances, are approved, so. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of requiring that a condition that require the billboard come down when the project is complete? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Thanks. Any other questions? If not, we have a ballot.
Five ballots cast, and the vote is 4-1 in favor of the signage variance.
The variance has been granted, And we'll hear the next two cases, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2084 West Lafayette Greenhouse Phase 2 LLC. And we're going to hear that in together with right?
Correct.
So we'll do in BZA 2084 West Lafayette Greenhouse Phase 2 LLC. Petitioner is requesting the following variances to expand the Inari Greenhouse facility in an office research zone. 1, to reduce the required maximum lot coverage from 25% to 28.7% UZO 2-14-6. And 2, to reduce the required setback from side setback from 20 feet to 0 feet UZO 2-14-8 on property located at 1436 Winhenschel Boulevard, West Lafayette, Wabash, 01 Southeast 235. And together with, this is BZA 2085 West Lafayette Greenhouse Facility LLC. The petitioner is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum required side setback from 20 feet to 0 feet to expand the Inari Greenhouse facility in an office research zone, UZO 2-14-9. The property is located at 3315 Kent Avenue, West Lafayette, Wabash, 01 Southeast 23-5.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. We'll hear from staff. Kathy, please.
Okay, petitioner's 2 tracks are located here at the corner of Winhenschel Boulevard and Kent Avenue. So it's kind of confusing. There are 2 tracks because the ownership is different for each of these 2 tracks. The easiest thing they could have done would be to have one ownership of both tracks replatted into a single lot. Then they wouldn't have needed that setback variance at all, either of the setback variances. But for whatever reason, the company needed this in separate ownership as it is. So that's why they're asking for the 0-foot setbacks on both sides of that property line. So the property is zoned OR. It's located in the Purdue Research Park. GB zoning is just to the west. Here's a look at the aerial photograph. You can see Sagamore Parkway over here, Calbear's up to the north. Here's a closer look at the property. I think when the aerial was taken, this part of the building was under construction. This is what it looks like to me. Also, so maybe I should back up a little bit. So BZA 2084, which is this property, nothing's there right now, but they want to build a building that would have a 28% lot coverage. The board heard a lot coverage variance just last year for this property for 36.8% was what was approved. So 36.8 was approved here. They're asking for 28.7 here. Here's a look at the site plan. This is the proposed building. This is the existing building, and here's that connection. It's pretty much just a covered hallway that connects the 2 buildings, but it does cross that property line here. Okay, here's the view looking east. I think it's basically from the Gretel's parking lot, looking east, northeast. So this is where the proposed building would be located. This is the West Lafayette Trail here. Winhenschel's here. Here's a look. Winhenschel is behind us, and this is the curb cut, which will be used for their driveway, and the parking area would be right here. And this is the view looking directly west from Kent. Kent is behind me. So right about here is where that little connection will be between the 2 buildings. And then this is a view looking south from the north building, the existing building. You can see all the construction equipment up there. So in the staff report, we did the findings of fact. We did it twice. The first findings of fact are regarding the lot coverage variance. And pretty much we felt it's not going to be injurious to public health or safety. It's not going to harm neighboring properties adversely. And it is a different situation, mainly because of the different ownerships of those two tracts. If this were one big tract, they would not need the setback variance. Also, we felt like the lot coverage variance was already covered under the previous variance last year. The board already said 36.8% was good, so this is 28.7%. And then the second set of findings of fact had to do with the two setback variances. I hope that's clear. We tried to make it as non-confusing as possible. But yeah, we felt this was an unusual situation and definitely a hardship, and staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Kathy. Petitioner is a representative.
Good evening, Kevin Riley, attorney with Riley, Teeter and Schreier, representing the petitioners. Greg Napier, the petitioner's representative, is here tonight as well and can answer any questions that you have. As Kathy mentioned, we're requesting a total of 3 variances. The plan is to build a 46,752 square foot building on the south lot, which that lot is currently vacant. The building will be used for greenhouse operation for research on commercial agricultural products. The new building to the south is going to be connected via an enclosed hallway to the building to the north. The purpose for the connection is that there are materials and products that have to be transferred from one building to another. These are a lot of early stage genetically edited plants that they don't want to have exposed to the elements. Hence the reason for the 0 foot setbacks on both lots is they don't want to take a chance of compromising those materials. So that's why we need the connection to the buildings. I've read the staff report, heard what Kathy had to say. We agree with their conclusions and their recommendations. Variances aren't going to be injurious to anyone. They're not going to affect the use or value of any adjacent properties. We agree that this isn't a common situation when you've got 2 buildings under separate ownership where they're going to be connected, and where you have a connection that's critical to the operation of the business in this particular instance. We agree with staff's findings on lot coverage. We agree that the hardship is not self-imposed. It's not based on perceived reduction or restriction of economic gain. And we agree that it provides the minimum relief needed to alleviate the hardship. So we request your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Questions, comments from the board? And Kathy, thanks for the explanation about the 2 different ownerships. I was wondering that. Hearing none, we have 3 ballots in front of us.
All right, there are 3 variances. I have 5 ballots cast for each of the 3 variances under BZA 2084. Variance number 1 is granted 5-0. BZA 2084, variance number 2 is granted 5-0. And BZA 2085, variance is granted 5-0.
All 3 variances are granted. And let's see, administrative matters.
There are none.
No administrative matters. Unless any member has an objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority decision of the board to be the collective findings of the board in support of the decision of the board. Hearing none, it is so ordered. And I'll take the last motion, please.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
All right.